Okay, and I am sharing my screen. One moment. Where's the, hold on. Okay, so everybody should see my screen. Okay. Okay. I'm really very happy to be able to talk about what's on my mind, what's been on my mind since these events have unfolded very rapidly, and I'd like to begin with talking about the title. Right, the title. But there were those swept away unjustly. The pasuk in Mishlei, Yesh nispa lilo mishpat, means there are those that are taken away, those who die, is the way Chazal learn it, below mishpat, when they are undeserving. And this pasuk, when Chazal read the pasuk, I'm scrolling down now. Chazal read this pasuk in Masechet Chagiga, and they said here that when they read this pasuk, he said, Rav Yosef. It's the third line of the Gemara here. Rav Yosef, Kimati lahai kra bachi. When Rav Yosef came to this passage, he would cry, V'yesh nispa below mishpat. And there are those who die and they don't deserve it. Amar mi ikada azil below zimne. Is it possible that people die not at their proper time, not at their time? Yes. Kihad Rav Bibi bar Abaye, as the story of Rav Bibi bar Abaye, have a shachiach gabe malach hamaves. Malach used to hang around with malach hamaves. Amar le l'shluche zil aiti limir megadlen seyar nishaya. So he overheard the following conversation that the angel of death said to his agent, to his shaliach, go bring me Miriam Megadla Seir Neshaya. I don't know the Christian reference here. This is Mary Magdalene, apparently. Okay? It doesn't matter. It was time for her to die. So the Malach HaMaves sent someone to bring her. Azal Aitile Miriam Megadla Dardaki. He made a mistake, and he brought a different Miriam with a similar last name, right? So Aitile Miriam Megadla Dardaki. Someone else by mistake. Amar Le. So the Malach HaMaves says to the Shaliach, Anna Miriam Agadla Seir Neshaya Amrilach. I told you to bring this Miriam, a different Miriam. Amar Le Ihachi Ahadra. Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, so I'll bring her back to life. Amar Le Hoiva Aitita Lahavi Leminyana. Since you brought her already, let her stay. Right? So you have this idea. I mean, I'm sure that literally speaking, Malach HaMaves doesn't make mistakes, right? But there's a sense here of peril and fear that yesh nispal lo mishpat, a person can die by accident. And this really underscores a very basic fear that people have. And the way people respond to this fear is what I want to take a look at in the first source that we have here, and this is from the Chidushei HaRamban, Nachmanides, on Masechet Megillah. Okay, I'll just summarize it in English, and I'll read the relevant passage in Hebrew. This is the opening piece of the Ramban in Masechet Megillah, where he talks about Purim, and Purim has a very is anomalous in the sense that there's more than one day of Purim. right? If you live in cities which don't have walls, then Purim is on the 14th of Adar. And if you live in cities that have walls from the time of Yehoshua ben Nun, then Purim is on the 15th day of Adar. So he's asking, like, what is that about? It's a very strange phenomenon. It doesn't exist with any other, in any other halacha. So he says, Ani tamea ma'od, right? He says, Ma ra'u al kacha, u'ma hagia lehem lasot Yisrael agudot b'mitzvah hazo. Why, what was the motivation of those who enacted the holiday of Purim to divide up Israel into groups where some people celebrate Purim on one day and some people celebrate Purim on another day? And he says as follows. This is very interesting. He says that the Nes of Purim, the saving of the Jews, primarily was for the Jews who were living in Eretz Yisrael. And why is that? He says that where were most of the cities that did not have walls? Those were the cities where Jews lived at the time in Eretz Yisrael, because Eretz Yisrael had been decimated. So and they didn't have really a means of self-defense. Whereas the places that had walls, they were less worried. So he says that the first year, everybody celebrated Purim. But in following years, the people that lived in the walled cities, they didn't celebrate at all. Because they said we weren't never really in danger. It was the people who were living out there in the unwalled cities, they were in danger. So the people in the unwalled cities, they continued to celebrate. And that's why Mordechai and Esther had to insist that the people that lived in the walled cities, they should also celebrate. So that they should realize that they were also in danger. Okay? I'm going to read this in Hebrew. But what I just said summarized what he says. When I look carefully at the passages, at the psukim in Megillah, I figured it out. Lefi shehu davar barur. It's clear. Shebizmano shel nes zeh kvar nifkedu Yisrael va'alu la'aretz b'rishyon koresh v'nityashvu ba'arehem. At that time, the Jews, many of the Jews, had already come back to the land of Israel under the permission of Cyrus, the king of Persia. Va'af al pisha amar Haman yeshno am echad mifuzar mufurad bein ha'amim. Right? Even though Haman, when he described the Jews, still described the Jews as being dispersed all over. But by that time, really, Anshe Knesset Hagdolah im Rov Yisrael ba'aretz hayu. Most of the Jews were already in Eretz Yisrael. Okay? Then he says, Ukeshetziva Achashverosh lashmid laharogu la'abed. When Achashverosh issued the edict to kill the Jews, hayu haprazim va'ayarot she'ein lehem choma saviv b'safek v'sakana gdola. So the Jews who lived in the unwalled cities, they were in grave danger. Shelo yalu lehem oivim, that they were in danger from their enemies, and they were in greater danger than those who were in the mukafim, in the cities which were walled. Right? And that's why he says, I'm skipping down here, Ulachar mikan b'shanim habaot, in the next paragraph, in the following years, amdu prazim v'nahug me'atzmam lasot yom arba'asa simcha u'mishteh v'yom tov. The people who lived in the unwalled cities, on the 14th of Adar, they didn't need reinforcement. They didn't need people to tell them to celebrate Purim. They celebrated it by themselves because they felt being saved. Aval mukafim lo asu klum. But the people who lived in the walled cities, they didn't do anything in subsequent years. Lefi shaya hanes gadol b'prazim. V'haya lehem sakana yoter. Because the miracle was for those who lived in the unwalled cities. And they were in greater danger. V'zeu shekatuv. And that's why it says in the Megillah, al kein hayudim haprazim hayoshvim ba'arei haprazot osim et yom yudalid lechodesh adar simcha u'mishteh. V'lo huzkru kan mukafim klal. And that's why in the end of the Megillah, it doesn't mention the mukafim, because they had to be reminded. Achar zman, but later, La'achar she'ir HaKadosh Baruch Hu einehem umatzu smach min haTorah amad Mordechai ubeit dino v'ra'u divreihem shel prazim shera'u hanes hazeh la'asot lo zecher ledorot v'kavu oto al kol Yisrael shekulan hayu b'safek. When they later on, when they understood that really all the Jews were in danger, that's when Mordechai and his court issued an edict saying that everyone has to celebrate Purim. Okay? Now, what does this have to do with what we're going through today? There's a natural tendency, which the Ramban is, which is the underlying assumption of the Ramban, that when there's a danger, people always point and always sort of naturally exclude themselves. We're not really in danger. I'm 62, right? So they say that you're only really in danger if you're 70 and above. And then I saw an article that said, if you're 60 and above. And I looked at that and I said, no, that's not true, right? It's really 70 and above, right? Now, if I was 69, I would also say it's 70 and above. If I was 71, I'd be nervous. I'd be looking for the articles that say 75 and above. Or, Baruch Hashem, Unai and Har'el, as they say. I'm a healthy person. My blood pressure is low, and my heartbeat is 59 because I exercise. So I'm healthy. Baruch Hashem. For 62, I'm very healthy, right? So, but I tell that to myself because it's natural to say I'm not really in danger. It's the other people who are in danger, and we look for all sorts of ways to make ourselves feel safe, but by excluding ourselves from the danger. Now, some of these ways might be innocuous, and some of these ways can be very pernicious. Okay? We have phenomena. Right. This is the pernicious phenomena. There were articles of young people actually celebrating, right, having parties in the street and going around coughing on old people. There were news items like that. Right. So what is that about? Right. So they want to feel they're not even aware of this. Right. That it's not about them. Right. The coronavirus does not affect them. They are immune. It's these other people who are immune, who are in danger, not us. Right? People have to excuse me about getting a little political, right? The Trump administration's insistence upon calling it the Chinese virus or the Wuhan virus, right? There's the German measles, right? They're always labeling the sickness as having to do with a place that's not here. It comes from the outside. It's not us. And this is not a new phenomenon. This is where the whole idea of Jews poisoning the wells during the Black Plague. It comes from the outside. So this is really a very pernicious expression of people trying to make themselves feel safe when it's not us. It comes from someplace else. It's not our age group. It's not our health group. Right? Whenever there are fatalities mentioned, I can say from reading from things here in Israel, I can assume that it's like this elsewhere. I think at this point, there are 8 fatalities here in Israel. So that whenever they have the news item, they say the person was 97 years old. The person was 88 years old. They had pre-existing health conditions. Now, why did they write that? Right? I'm sure, let's say it's true. I assume that it's true. But they don't write all other things. The person was a grandmother. The person had 5 children. That's not what people are interested in. People are interested in knowing how old was this person. So when I see the person's 88, I feel better because I'm 62. But if I see that, there's somebody 31 who died, that makes me nervous. Makes me nervous for myself, makes me nervous for my children. So there's this, there's just this effort that we want to make ourselves feel safe. There was a news item in one of the, what was it? Not the Times of Israel. Arutz Sheva, I think it was. I don't know, one of these more right-wing Israeli websites. And it said, this was like a week ago, how prepared Israel was for this and how much better it is here than that we caught it early and we realized how serious it is. And then I saw someplace else there was a graph, and the graph showed that the amount of people diagnosed with corona was doubling every 3 days, right? Which made us identical to Italy. So I just posted that and I said, beware the soothsayers. Right? And all these people are like happy. Oh, look, we got it and we're smart and we figured it out and we're going to find a cure soon. Right? All this stuff goes on. But, you know, hopefully everybody should get a handle on it. But this idea that, that we're different, be very careful of being self-congratulatory. That's how you know there's something wrong. If something is too good and people are too happy about it, it's serving a very basic need to make ourselves feel safe. Okay? Now, so this is a general psychological phenomenon, which goes back, and I think that's what the Ramban is referring to as well. Okay? Now, there's some, and this is all pretty transparent, but there's a phenomena which is less transparent, which is fed by the same psychological propensity. And that, I think, religious people are mostly guilty of, but not only. It's giving reasons, like why is this happening? People want to know why is it happening. So you can have like a very well-known Rosh Yeshiva blamed gay rights, right? And somebody blamed open orthodoxy. And there was a Muslim imam in the Palestinian Authority that blamed the Chinese because they're oppressing the Muslims in China. So this is not something that's a particularly Jewish problem. Whereas there is a need that people have to explain why, because it gives a sense of control. That if I can understand why, I can fix it. Right? Now, let's be fair. Right? The Gemara, let's say in the Agarata of the Churban, does give reasons for the Churban, like Akamtza Ubar Kamtza Charav Yerushalayim. The story of the destruction of Jerusalem was because of baseless hatred, as told in the story of Kamtza Ubar Kamtza. So that the Gemara says that. So from that, one could think that, look, the Gemara gives reasons, right? So we can also give reasons. So it seems to be a traditional way of relating to calamities is that we give reasons. Right? I remember when I was in yeshiva, my first years, it had to be in the late 1970s, and there was a terrible bus accident in Petach Tikva. And I'm talking 50 years ago, and not 50, 45 years ago. So there were a bunch of school children killed here, and everybody, of course, was in shock. And one of the sarim in the Memshala at the time, who was a sar from Shas, it was when Aryeh Deri was 10 years old at the time. It was someone else who was also a Rav, and he said that it happened in Petach Tikva because movie theaters were open on Shabbos. Okay, that's what he said. Because it happened to be at that time, there was a whole fight about movie theaters in Petach Tikva, and he said the reason this happened in Petach Tikva is because the movie theaters are open on Shabbos. Okay, now, aside from the blasphemy involved in that, is that why should children be killed because somebody else is being Mechal Shabbos, and it's not Mechal Shabbos Midoraisa, but I'm not going to get into halachic analysis, so it casts God as a criminal. Okay, so let's put that aside. But I remember Rav Lichtenstein got up in Shalosh Shudas, I'll never forget this, and he quoted the following midrash. Okay, I'll find the midrash for you here. The midrash in Brachot, and I got it on Brachot of Zayin Amud Aleph. Okay, you see in the middle of the page here. Bil'am harasha, dichtiv be v'yodea dat elyon. Right, with regards to Bil'am, it says, Bilam said about himself that he knows God's thoughts, right? Yodea dat elyon. And the Gemara says, dat elyon, hashta dat behem tolo havayada. Dat elyon havayada. He didn't even understand his donkey. He understands God. So I remember Rav Lichtenstein got up and just quoted that medrash. Dat behem to eno yodea. Dat elyon yodea. Right? The presumptuousness and the callousness of such a statement was mind-boggling. And it wasn't by an adolescent who looks for certainty in everything. This is someone who was a Rav. He had been the Rav of a city, and he was a minister in the government. So I think that type of visceral response that Rav Lichtenstein exhibited, that he put into that midrash, is something that I carry with me for a very long time. So this is the problem of giving reasons. On the one hand, it seems to be the traditional way to go, but how could you say such a thing? Right? It involves a tremendous amount of hubris to say that you can come up with a reason. So I want to take a closer look at this, and I want to look at the Rambam. This is the Rambam in Hilchot Tanuyot, the laws of fasting. Okay? Because normally we would say, all right, I'm going to read this. I'm going to read these halachot and translate them, and then we'll see what is he actually saying. He says in Perek Aleph Halacha Aleph, in the first chapter of the laws of fasting. So the Rambam says, Mitzvat asay min haTorah lizok ulaharia b'chatzotzrot al kol tzara shetavo al tzibur. Right? There's a positive commandment that whenever there's a calamity, there's a positive commandment to cry out to God and to blow the trumpets. Shne'emar al atzar torer etchem v'hariotem b'chatzotzrot. Klomar, kol davar sheyitzar lechem k'gon batzoret v'dever v'arbe v'kayotzei b'hem zaku alehem v'hariyu. Any calamity that occurs, you should cry out to God. Okay? And then he says in Al Bet, v'davar zeh midarkei atshuvahu. This behavior is a behavior of the path of tshuva. Shebizman shetavot tzara, so when something terrible happens, v'yiz aku aleha, and they cry out regarding the calamity, v'yariu, and they blow the shofar, yedu akol shebiglal ma'aseim hara'im hura lehem. Everyone will know that it's because of their evil deeds that evil things have happened to them. Okay? V'zehu she'igrom lehem la'asir hatzara me'alehem. And that's what will cause them, will cause the calamity to cease. Aval im lo yizaku, halacha gimel, aval im lo yizaku, if they don't cry out, v'lo yariu, ela yomru davar zemi min hag ha'ulam ira lanu, v'tzara zo nikro nikreit. If they don't cry out to God, but they say, this is just a natural occurrence, right? Harezo derech achzariyut. This is a very cruel way to be. V'goremet lehem hidabek b'ma'asehem hara'im. V'tosif hatzarat tzarot achirot. So this will cause them to cling to their evil ways, and things will only get worse. Okay. So now, when we read this superficially, we would say that the Rambam says you have to attribute a reason for what's happening. Okay. Now, that's true. But if we look at the Rambam carefully, he never says that attributing a reason is that's the true reason. What he says is that attributing a reason is important because it makes you be choser b'tshuva, because it makes you repent, it makes you change your ways. And if you don't take responsibility for it in terms of your actions, then you will cling to your evil ways. So the way to induce people to do tshuva is to tell them that they are responsible for what's happening. People have to believe that they're responsible for what's happening so that they change their way, and that will change the reality. Now, the Rambam is not taking a stand here about whether it's this particular chait or that particular chait which is causing the calamity. What he's saying is, in essence, that it's very important to ask the right question. And I think people very often are asking the wrong question. The wrong question is, why is this happening? The right question is, what is my response to this? And that's what the Rambam is saying. My response to the calamity has to be that I have to be choser b'tshuva. And if my response is not that I have to be choser b'tshuva, then that's going to make the calamity worse. But it's not why is it happening, but it's how do I need to respond? And I think that's really critical. The importance of asking the right question. And that's what I learned from the Rambam. Not to ask why, but rather to ask how. How should I respond? Now, asking why and giving an answer to why, I think is very dangerous, and I think it is very hurtful religiously. And I would like to look at some sources here. We take a look at the Gemara on the second page from Brachot Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph, right? We would say normally, we'll talk about this Gemara in a second. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to pray. And we're supposed to pray really hard. And very often you see in writing or people say that if you would just daven hard enough, God would answer. And that means, of course, that if God doesn't answer, there's something wrong with us because we didn't daven hard enough. Right? That seems to be the quote unquote the frum response. Someone who says that is really frum. Well, so if you don't really believe that, so you're not really frum, right? You don't really believe that prayer helps. Okay? Let's see what the Gemara says about this. The Gemara says, Masechet Brachot, Kol ha'ma'arich b'tfilato u'ma'ayin ba, whoever prays, stretches out their prayer, and let's see, ma'ayin ba would be, and concentrates too much into their prayer, sof ba lidei ke'ev lev. The end of the day, they come to a, let's say, ke'ev lev, right? Their heart they come to heartache. Shne'emar, tochelet mimushacha mechala lev, right? Extended tefillah causes heart disease. V'amar Rabbi Yitzchak, and Rabbi Yitzchak said, Shlosha dvarim mazkirim avonotav shel adam. There are three activities when someone encounters them, it puts them in a very precarious situation. That God remembers their ill deeds. Right? Shlosha dvarim mazkirim avonotav shel adam. Ve'eluhein kir natui, right? A wall that's hanging over, right? Because it's dangerous. So whenever you're in a dangerous situation, you got to be careful, right? Ve'iyun tefillah. Okay? So iyun tefillah is something which is dangerous. It makes God recall your sins. So what does that mean? Let's take a look at Rashi, right? Rashi is the next source here. Ma'ayin ba, right? What does iyun tefillah mean? Ma'ayin ba, omer belibo shete'aseh bakashato, lefi shehitpalel bekavana. The person davens with such kavana, they say, God must listen to me because I'm davening with such great kavana. Okay? Ke'ev lev, right? What's the heartache? She'ein bakashato na'aseh. So God doesn't do what he wants, so it causes him heartache. Mazkirin avonotav she'al yedehen mifashpeshim lemala b'ma'asav lomar boteachu b'zchuyotav nireh mahem. Right? Why is it that that type of behavior elicits like God's scrutiny against you? It's because the person is relying on their righteousness. So the person is relying on their righteousness. So God says, let's see what the righteousness is made out of, so to speak. Okay? So here we see, I think this is a very fundamental difference between religion and magic. Right? Because on the face of it, they seem pretty similar, right? You do these rituals and they're supposed to have certain effects in the world. So in magic, there are those rituals, and in religion, you have other rituals. It doesn't matter whether it's halachic rituals or Christian rituals, it doesn't matter. Somehow it's magic, right? But there's a very fundamental difference, which I think is underscored in this sugya of iyun tefillah. And that is that magic is about control. Magic is really much more like technology. It's just spiritual technology if you believe it, right? If you say a certain incantation, that controls certain things. Right? So it's about control. Whereas in religion and prayer, and for our religion, if it's Torah mitzvot, is about service. You can't be sure. It's not about controlling God through actions. It's not about saying these kapitlach tehillim and then this for sure you'll have a shidduch, right? Or you put on a red ribbon around your wrist and it protects you from the ayin hara or whatever it is. That's magic, right? You can have, and this is why what I meant when I said it's dangerous, because the line between magic and religion is very fine, which is what this Gemara is talking about, really. That if you relate to your religious practices and your prayer as controlling, even subconsciously, because if I ever said anybody, nobody would say, of course, nobody would think you're really controlling God, but subconsciously, it makes you feel safe that if you do this, it will be okay, right? Which is, of course, undermined by that Gemara that I read to you before, all the Amoraim that cried at those psukim that show that life is not so simple, right? That people can die without justice, even before their time, because it's always comforting to think, when my time comes, my time will come. There's nothing I can do. So this tells you, what? Maybe you don't have a time, or maybe your time can come too early if you're not careful when you cross the street, right? So trying to control that, using prayer that way, and using rituals that way is not religion. It's magic. It's sort of like Avodah Zarah. So you can have two people doing the exact same thing, and one person will be doing a mitzvah, and the other person will be being Oved Avodah Zarah, being involved in idolatrous practices, because he even subconsciously believes that he's controlling God. So it's not about control, but there's a natural tendency that people have to believe they're in control. Otherwise, it makes it very hard to sleep at night. We all have to believe that we're in control. Okay? Now, I want to study with you a short part of the Mea Shiloach. This is the last source on the page, where he talks about the excessive attempt to control, even to control yourself so that you don't sin, right? The self-control of a righteous person, but obsession with self-control, he views it as a flaw. And this gets played out in his description of Yosef, in the narrative of Yosef and his brothers. Okay, I would like to study that with you. Okay, So this is the Sefer Mea Shiloach of Mordechai Yosef of Ishbitz, who lived in the beginning of the 19th century in Poland. He was a Hasidic master, a disciple of Reb Simcha Chabunim of Pshischa and of the Kotzker. So he says as follows: Ki ben skunim hu lo, right? Describing Yosef. Yosef was similar to Yaakov, his father. Kamoshi Yaakov Avinu hitnaheg atzmo b'midat Yitzchak Avinu, just like Yaakov behaved like Yitzchak, which is hainu yir'ah, right? They behaved in a way which was God-fearing. Gam hu hitnaheg atzmo b'midah hazot. Yosef is also God-fearing, right? Uba'anava kemo aviv, God-fearing and humble. That might be funny to think of Yosef that way, but that's how he paints Yosef. Because Yosef's, the moment, sometimes we have moments in our lives which characterize us. So the moment for Yosef is the fact that he does not succumb to the temptations of Eshet Potiphar. So that brands him as a tzaddik, someone who acts with a great deal of self-restraint. And because of that, that's why God was so harsh with Yosef. Even though it's good to exhibit self-control and yirat shamayim and fear of heaven and humility. Look what he says here. You have to have a little faith. In other words, there's the downside. There's the downside to the person who has too much yirat shamayim, in the sense that they always want to be in control. They always need to be machmir in everything. Right? Why? Because what's wrong with that? It displays a certain lack of faith. Like you don't trust the world, you don't trust God in the world, that you do your best and then you let go. So Yosef had a problem in letting go. Right? That's, if you think about you, now's not the time, we're not learning Sefer Bereshit together, but think about Yosef as someone who's used to being in control. Every place he goes, he's put in control, right? So, but he says, Mikol makom tzarich adam livtoch b'Hashem gamkein. And then he says, then he interprets the dreams of the Sar HaMashkim and the Sar HaOfim, of the butler and the baker, right, of Paro. And he says that those dreams, you remember the dreams, right? The Sar HaMashkim has a dream that that he's going to squeeze the grapes and give them back to Paro. And the Sar HaOfim has this story about the bird and chirping at the bread, right? And Yosef tells him that he's going to die. Now, Chazal talk about what was their original crime. And this is very telling. He says as follows. Hainu, the fourth line from the bottom of this piece. L'chol melech yesh shnei sarim, Sar HaMashkeh v'Sar HaOfeh. Right? Every king has a butler and a baker. Okay? What do they symbolize? Uvemet l'Sar HaMashkeh, for the one who gives the wine, mera'ui leval lehanesh oto. He should be pardoned. The Sar HaMashkim deserves to be pardoned. Why? Im yimatzei zvuv b'koso. So that's what Chazal say. The sages say that the crime of the Sar HaMashkim, of the wine bearer, was that Paro found a fly in his goblet. So why should he be pardoned for that? Because what could the wine bearer, what could he do? Because a fly is a living thing. And you can't be totally careful when it comes to things that are alive. Who can say when the fly flew into the cup? When it was under the responsibility of the wine bearer, or when it was already in Paro's hands. In other words, life is not something you can control, and therefore you can be forgiven. If you do your best and something happens, because you do not control life, you can't control the fly. The fly and the saramashkim are symbols of a living reality which human beings cannot control. Aval sar ha'ofim la'asher bepat nimtza batzror, right? But the pebble was found in the bread. Halo alav ha'asham. So for that he is guilty. Ki tzror eino bal chai v'yuchal lishamer mizeh. Because when you talk about inanimate objects, then you're responsible. If it's not life, then we expect you to control it. Lezoter alo Hashem yitbarach. That's why God showed Yosef. Ki Yosef hu neged sar ha'ofim. So this is very interesting. In general, how God speaks to Yosef. God doesn't speak to Yosef directly. He speaks to Yosef through the dreams of the Sar Mashkim and the Sar Ha'ofim. But what is the message that God has for Yosef? The message that God has for Yosef, paradoxically, is you're too much of a tzaddik. You're trying to control everything, and you don't have faith in me. So if you relate to life as if it's dead, then you're responsible for everything. But realize that you're really not in control, and then you can be forgiven. So this mindset, which is actually induced today by the technological society in which we live, that we live in an illusion that we're in control, that there's a cure for everything. It's just a matter of time, and we know how to handle it, right? And this is an illusion. We have to know that there are things that we control and things that we don't control. And we have to take it in ourselves that we actually live in a state of uncertainty and not give in to this inclination, to this temptation, to this false sense of security. Okay? Now, why is that bad, to give in to a sense of security? I want to finish with this, another short piece from, it's called Sefer Pri Haaretz by Rav Menachem Mendel Vitebsk. He was one of the disciples, one of the main disciples of the Baal Shem Tov, who came in Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael in the late 18th century. He was the Rebbe of the Baal HaTanya, so very substantial. So he talks about what is the fear that Yaakov has when before he meets Esav, right? Because Yaakov has a promise from God. Yaakov's promise from God is that God will return him safely home. And then Chazal say, Mityarei Shema Yigrom Hachet. Right? He was fearful. Maybe he sinned. Right? So what is Shema Yigrom Hachet about? So he says as follows. Look at the second paragraph. V'hinei Inyan Shema Yigrom Hachet. To understand what this means, Shema Yigrom Hachet. Perhaps the sin will change, his sinful behavior changes the reality, and God's guarantee will no longer be valid. I mean, he's afraid. Even though God says it'll be okay, God reassures him that it'll be okay. Vashivoticha, right? I'll bring you back, God said to him. He's still afraid. So what is that about? So he says as follows. Bichdei lahavino al inyan. Okay? In order to understand this, ha'avodah amititi, the real worship of God, the real service of God, shekol tzadik v'tzadik, ikar tochen kavanato b'chol ma'aseh ritzonav, the intention of the tzaddik in everything that they do, bichdei lasot nachat ruach lebor'o, she'amar v'na'aseh ritzono, to do what God asks. ואפילו אם הקדוש ברוך הוא מבטיח לו כל הטובות והשמירה מעולה, מתיירא שמא יגרום החטא. And even if God promises him the world, he's still in fear that perhaps his negative behavior will cancel the guarantee. Okay, so what is it? Here's the twist. What is the chet? Gasut libo b'havtacha zo ba'atzmo v'yitrachek me'ito yitbarach. Ume'ata, I'm skimming, just see what I wrote in bold, what I put in bold. Me'ata yesh lehityarei le'olam yoter shu tzadik ubatuach me'ito yitbarach pachdato elav ne'um Hashem v'havtachato shelo yarchikuhu. What the tzaddik has to be careful of is that he will believe the promise that God gives him. When God promises you it'll be okay, that's when you have to be afraid. You have to be afraid that you're going to rely on God's reassurance. It's very paradoxical. Precisely because God reassures you, what you have to be afraid of is that you're relying on the reassurance. What are you not relying on? What you're not relying on is God. Because what happens is the havtacha, that everything will be okay, that feeling that you have, and here it's in the narrative, that promise comes from God himself. But that promise itself becomes an obstacle because the promise intervenes between the person and God, so that the promise itself can become an avodah zarah, can become an object of worship, where I have the promise from God. I have the shtar, I have the document, right? I have the promise. So I don't need God, I have the promise. So that's the danger, that gasut libo, it's a very powerful term, gasut libo, the thickness or the impenetrability of the person's heart because of the promise that God gave him. That itself is the chet which we have to fear. So the promise, the feeling of security, the feeling that we have that we're not in danger, it's the other people that are in danger, that illusion of security that we create for ourselves, right? That is a religious hazard. If there's anything that we need, I believe that we need to take away, not why this is happening, but what is my response to it, is to experience the reality that we're really all dependent on God. We're really all part of the gzeirah. When we interiorize that, when we feel that deeply, our davening will be different. And that's what's important. What's important is, of course, externally, that we're careful and we should be helpful to other people when we can be helpful to other people. But religiously, internally, we have to strip away these illusions of safety that are natural in us for millennia, but are compounded by the fact that we live in a technological society. We have to be able to face the reality without the havtacha. And when we face the reality without the havtacha, then there's nothing in between us and God. And that's what we can that's what I believe we can take away from this. Okay. I am now going to unmute. Let me unmute. Okay. So if there are any questions or comments, try to keep it one at a time. Yes? Everyone is unmuted, so you can ask any questions if you like. If there are no questions, then it's okay.
I'm sorry to have arrived late, and I wondered whether the beginning of the share had been recorded.
Yes, yes. Yes, everything is being recorded. Yes. Okay, so I'll be posting the recording so you can tell your friends, anybody that wasn't here. What? Okay, so thank you everyone for coming. I see people I haven't seen for a while and some people that I don't know, but the people that I don't know, it's nice to meet you, and the people that I haven't seen in a while, it's nice to see you again.
Full share. Beautiful share.
Okay, everyone stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you very much.
Okay, take care.
Thank you, everyone. Good Chodesh.